Good morning and welcome to World News coming to you live from Warsaw. I'm Saria Strzemska. Today marks the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Nazi German Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration and extermination camp. Commemorative ceremonies to honor the victims will be held on the grounds of the former camp in southern Poland, with the last living survivors as well as state officials in attendance. Approximately 1.1 million people were killed at the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration and extermination camp by Nazi Germany during World War II. The vast majority were Jews, but the victims also included Poles, Roma and Sinti people and Soviet prisoners of war. On January 27, 1945, the Soviet army liberated around 7,500 prisoners still remaining in the main camp. Polish President Andrzej Duda, who will take part in the ceremonies, will address the attendees at 9 a.m. local time. Commemorative events will also be held in other countries, including Israel, where a memorial will be held at Yad Vashem Holocaust Remembrance Center. The Israeli president will be in attendance there. On Monday, Auschwitz survivors will return to the site that witnessed so much unspeakable horror. It comes as their numbers and the first-hand accounts they provide dwindle with time. Our chief political correspondent Aaron Damen has this very special report.
W 86 roku zmarłam, to 40 przeszło lat.
I was immediately hit by the smell of burning bodies. So I was already scared. I didn't know where I was.
Janina was just 14 years old when she arrived in a freight train at Nazi Germany's largest and deadliest concentration camp. When she arrived at the place and symbol of a brutal genocide.
They lined us up in a circle, and in the middle stood the Germans, young Germans, with cameras and took pictures of us. And they laughed terribly.
Through extensive archive footage and interviews, the suffering is laid bare of those who walked under the main gate of Auschwitz and the German words Arbeit macht frei. Work sets you free.
He came up to me and said, "Here's my toothbrush. I don't need it anymore. In 2 hours at the least, I'll fly out of here through the chimney. I will remember this for the rest of my life." They were taken straight to their deaths. Work sets you free. We used to say, freedom through the chimney.
Twenty-two.
22-0-11.
Like other survivors, Teresa's arm has carried this tattoo for more than 80 years, ensuring she will never forget what happened to her. She entered the camp aged 16 on a day that changed her life forever.
When I came back, I thought I would never have children. Never. If they had to go through anything like what I went through, I don't want to repeat that.
Of the 1.3 million people deported to Auschwitz during the Second World War, 1.1 million were killed, mostly Jews, all in a place that existed for less than 5 years.
I wanted to live. I didn't believe I could make it. But somehow, I did.
A horror mark on history, never to be forgotten.
O 6 wymarsz, parę kilometrów do roboty w polu. Mordercza praca, trudno przeżyć jeden dzień, a trzeba było przeżyć jeszcze jeden.
Kwarantanna w obozie była zamianą człowieka na więźnia, a więzień to już nie był człowiekiem. Więzień był numerem.
Moje piekło no to było Birkenau. I gdy cię ktoś zapyta, gdzie jest piekło, śmiało odpowiedzieć możesz tu.
We'll, of course, be going back to this topic throughout the day. For those of you who are just joining us, today marks 80 years since the liberation of the Nazi German concentration camp Auschwitz-Birkenau in 1945. For now, let's move on to the latest news. Chancellor of Germany Olaf Scholz is set to visit Poland today, where he will meet with the Polish Prime Minister. The head of the German government will also commemorate the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Olaf Scholz is going to attend the memorial ceremonies held at the Auschwitz concentration and extermination camp grounds. In the nearby city of Krakow, he will meet with Prime Minister Donald Tusk to discuss security policy and international politics. The agenda for the meeting of the two leaders also includes economic and energy issues. EU foreign ministers will gather in Brussels on Monday to discuss the most pressing issues for Europe. The meeting will be chaired by Kaja Kallas, the EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs.
To prolong all the sanction regimes today and this week, and also the 16th package will adopt it soon. And I'm very happy that Poland took over the presidency for this half a year, and we can move forward. As well, the frozen assets of Russia. We need to take in use the frozen assets, the main part. Estonia has adopted the law already last year that we can do it, so I don't believe in this kind of excuses that we don't have the legal frame.
Viktor Orban is playing on Putin's team, not on ours, said Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk after his Hungarian counterpart threatened to veto EU sanctions on Russia. This follows a massive row between Budapest and Kyiv after Ukraine halted the transit of Russian energy products through its territory. Franciszek Pilis reports.
During his EU Council presidency address at the European Parliament in Strasbourg, Donald Tusk was clear.
The war in Ukraine will end. The Russian aggression against Ukraine will end. We will return to business as we used to and make Europe dependent on Russian supplies again. This sort of thinking must end once and for all, because that, among other things, is what led to this war in the first place.
Some in Europe, however, seem less enthusiastic than the Polish Prime Minister about moving away from Russian resources.
Now that the issue of the rollover of the Russian sanctions is on the agenda, I have slammed on the brakes and asked EU leaders to understand that this situation cannot continue. They cannot make Hungary pay the price for these sanctions to such a degree.
Orbán took this harsh stance after Kyiv decided not to renew its gas transit agreement with Moscow, which saw the transportation of Russian gas through Ukrainian territory to Europe. In response to Orbán's threat of vetoing EU sanctions against Russia, Donald Tusk called his Hungarian counterpart a bona fide Russian ally.
If Viktor Orban really blocks European sanctions at a key moment for the war, it will be absolutely clear that in this big game for the security and future of Europe, he is playing on Putin's team, not in ours, with all the consequences of this fact.
Hungary's foreign minister, Peter Szijjártó, replied to Tusk's comment online, saying, quote, "We play for Hungary's team and represent Hungarian interests." The Hungarian Prime Minister, hand in hand with his Slovakian counterpart Robert Fico, says the lack of Russian gas in Europe will have tremendous consequences for the economy, while the rest of the EU argues both countries can easily find replacement suppliers.
We will continue with these packages, and I think that Viktor Orban is now trying to push Brussels to have it more money from European budget, because he has it still a package. What is it frozen by European Commission?
Politico, citing anonymous EU envoys as sources, said an EU meeting on January 27th is likely to see a resolution to this inner European conflict, with most of them betting Hungary will in fact renew the sanctions, a stance mirrored by some members of the European Parliament.
I am 100% sure that really we will prolong the sanction and Hungary will involve in this process. Also, this is what I can say in this moment. It's still ongoing on Sunday, today, the negotiation, but I think that the result will be positive.
However, if no compromise is reached, the EU will only have until the end of January to prolong the sanctions, for which unanimous support is needed.
Stockholm has seized a ship suspected of damaging a data cable running under the Baltic Sea from Sweden to Latvia. According to Swedish authorities, a preliminary investigation is pointing to sabotage. The incident took place less than a month after NATO launched a new mission in the Baltic Sea in response to attacks on underwater power and telecom cables. While Russia was not officially blamed for the cable damage, NATO chief Mark Rutte said the military alliance would step up its monitoring of Moscow-linked ships that have no clear ownership and are used to carry embargoed oil products. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky has announced the appointment of Major General Mihailo Drapati to head of the Hortyssia group of forces, currently engaged in some of the most brutal clashes against Russia. Zelensky also added that Drapati will also continue as commander of land forces, the largest component of the armed forces of Ukraine.
Soon it will be 6 months of our active operations in the Kursk region aimed at protecting Ukrainian land. We are maintaining a buffer zone on Russian territory to safeguard Sumy and Kharkiv from Russian offensives. Major General Mihailo Drapati has been assigned to lead the Hortyssia operational strategic group of forces, currently deployed in areas seeing the most intense fighting. At the same time, Drapati will retain his position as commander of the land forces, the largest component of our armed forces.
The Polish Foreign Ministry condemned what it has called sham presidential elections that took place on Sunday in Belarus. In a post on X, the ministry said that the vote violated basic democratic procedures. Here's more.
The Ministry of Foreign Affairs expresses disappointment at the presidential election in Belarus, which was held today in violation of basic democratic procedures. Due to the actions of the Belarusian authorities, independent candidates were prevented from taking part in the elections.
After its initial opposition, Colombia has decided to accept U.S. Army planes transporting undocumented migrants for repatriation. After Bogota blocked the first planes from landing, Donald Trump ordered immediate tariffs on Colombian goods and forced Colombia into submission. The White House press secretary has said that the events make clear to the world that America is respected again. Donald Trump has begun deportation of undocumented migrants from the U.S. and hopes that other countries cooperate in accepting their citizens back. Colombia wanted to block the transfers, which prompted the U.S. administration to slap 25% tariffs on Colombian goods and threatened to raise them to 50% in a week. Trump also imposed a travel ban for Colombian citizens. After that, Bogota announced that the deportation flights from the U.S. had resumed. And we continue with Donald Trump. The President of the United States said last evening he wants Jordan and Egypt to take in Palestinians from Gaza. Aboard Air Force One, Donald Trump told reporters that Gaza is a demolition site and the over 1.5 million people living there should be moved elsewhere. Donald Trump did not say whether such measures would be temporary or permanent. Both Hamas and Palestinian Authority condemned the proposal alongside Egypt and Jordan. Trump's comments come amid a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, which put a halt to hostilities that broke out in October of 2023 and have since killed more than 47,000 people, mainly Palestinian civilians. And with this, we conclude our news recap. Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for more.